Hello everyone, my name is Miranda and today I'm here to do a somewhat late September wrap-up since I just haven't got around to doing it before. But September I started off really strong with reading. I was reading so many books I feel like, and then towards the end it just kind of trickled off a little and into October, which you will see when I do my October wrap-up. But I did manage to read quite a few books for September. I read a lot of ebooks actually, which I don't normally do, so I don't have the physical copies of a lot of them, but I read some really good ones, so I'm really excited to share them with all of you, and without further ado, let's get started. First off, I read one of my most anticipated books for 2017, which is Caraval by Stephanie Garber, I think is how you say her last name, but I could be wrong. And this is a really cool magical book, YA book, that's coming out in January of 2017. It's a debut, and it's basically about this kind of game called Caraval that's like magic, and you have to compete to try and win it, but the thing is, everything that you see, you have to remember it's not real because you could go insane if you get too caught up in the game. And it's about this girl who goes to try and rescue her sister from the game and try and play the game and win the game and kind of win her freedom in doing the game. It was really interesting. I haven't read a book quite like this since probably Night Circus, so if you were a fan of that, I think it's definitely different in a way, like definitely not as intense as Night Circus, I feel like, but it goes in the same vein of that. And I liked it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped I would, unfortunately, but I did enjoy parts of it. And I don't know, I think my biggest thing is like I don't feel like it needs to be a sequel, so like the fact that it's having a sequel is like and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I read another arc that's coming out in 2017, and that was Long May She Reign by Rianne, I think, Thomas. I think it's Rianne. Could be completely off on that. And this has a really cool premise. So basically it's about this girl who is 23rd in line for the throne in this world that she lives in, but every single person who's above her is killed in one night, so now she is suddenly the queen of this country when she's never really been prepped for it, because like you're 23rd, like there's little chance of you ever being queen, and now she is. So not only is she trying to figure out all these new things, but she also has to try and figure out who the murderer is, because as the only living one and now queen, it looks like she had the most to gain from killing all the people above her. So she has to figure out and try and clear her own name. And what's really cool about this was she's a very sciencey girl, which I really liked, because normally for some reason there's like that stereotype of girls in books are usually very bookish. This one, her thing is really more chemistry and forensics, which was different, and I really like how she used that to her advantage and how she became queen and didn't lose that part of herself and incorporated it. I really liked it. I thought the characters were very strong. The only thing that didn't work for me was the love interest, which I don't want to spoil who it is or what happens. It's left very open-ended, and I know some people are okay with that, but I like to have definitive endings. Like, we're happy, we're in love, and when it doesn't happen that way, I'm just not the happiest. So I would have given this book 5 out of 5 stars, but the ending felt a tad rushed and just kind of like, so I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. After that, we have my third arc, which was Roseblood by A.G. Howard, and this is a retelling of the Phantom of the Opera-ish. Like, it's not a verbatim retelling, but like if you know the general idea of Phantom of the Opera, you will get it. I had never seen Phantom of the Opera, so I didn't know too much, but my friend gave me a little rundown, so it was really good. And I was just excited to read this book just because like you don't really hear about Phantom of the Opera retellings ever, and the cover also looks super intriguing. Unfortunately, reading it, I was not that impressed with it. I just feel like, I don't know how to explain what I didn't like about this book. I feel like it was just very moody and melodramatic and just like not what I was expecting it to be. The main girl is also kind of a dum-dum at certain points, which I absolutely hate, because it's like she moves to this special school in France, and it's kind of things are going on where like she's hearing things, she's seeing things, and she doesn't really want to tell anyone, but she decides like I'm gonna go and figure it out for myself, and it's like that's not the smartest move. Like, at least bring a knife or something. So I feel like it was just, I don't know, it could have been more well thought out. I think it was definitely like interesting in that like I hadn't really read anything like it before, but yeah, I think it definitely could have been a lot better than it was and more just well plotted. And I don't know, I didn't like the dual point of view because we had both love interest point of views in this, and I didn't like that, so it was very disappointing for me, and I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. After that, I met one of my goals in finishing the Miss Peregrine's trilogy by reading Library of Souls by Ransom Riggs, which is the third and final book in the Miss Peregrine trilogy. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but like final books lately have not been doing it for me. Like they're just like, eh. So this book picked up right after Hollow City ended with Emma and the dog Addison and Jake on their own, separated from their friends who had been taken by the Hollows, and now they're trying to go and find them and release everyone and save basically Doomsday from happening. So I feel like, again, my biggest problem with Hollow City was that it was so much like building up to the action and nothing really ever happened. And unfortunately, I felt like this happened again in Library of Souls, which I wasn't expecting since it's the last book. It just felt like Emma and Jake were constantly chasing something, like they were in the wrong place or got sidetracked, or it was always like the battle that they were in was leading to something bigger. So it was just kind of disappointing in that way. And then also things didn't wrap up particularly well. Like there was definitely still questions left, and they were questions that were only brought up in this book, and they were pretty important questions. Like, ending was a tad, like I like the ending, but before we get to like the actual ending, like the ending before that was kind of strange, and I'm trying to keep this non-spoilery, so sorry if it sounds really strange, but I don't know. I was disappointed, and I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I read The Bone Witch by Rin. I can't even try and pronounce their last name. I'm sorry about that. And this is a book. It's really interesting. It's about these bone witches who basically, there's different types of witches in this world, and our main character is a bone witch. And I really liked, which is like, you know, dead things and all that, you know, bones. And I really like the premise of this book because it's set up in 2 narratives. Like, we have the bone witch as a 17-year-old girl telling someone who's come to this island where she lives at alone, telling them her story. And then we also have her as like a 12-year-old girl coming into her powers, and this is the story she's telling. So you get both of those things. So it leads to some really cool spoilers and twists because like when she's a 12-year-old girl, like this person could be her best friend, or she could be really close to this person. So then when she's 17 and she's saying like, oh, they're the love of my life, you think you know who it is because you think it's who she is when she's 12, but then she says something, you're like, oh crap, I only know like half the story. So this is the first book in a new series. It's really intriguing. My only issue was, again, I feel like it was just set up for the rest of the book. Like I found myself skipping some parts just because I was like, all right, this is going to pay off afterwards and I don't really want to spend the time reading it now. So I think when all these books are out, this series is going to be really cool as a whole, like when we can catch up to where she is now as a 17-year-old and then continue on from there. I think it's going to be really cool, but until we get to that point, I just wasn't that like impressed. Like it was good, it was different, but I just wanted more, so I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Finally this month I read Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, and this might be my most disappointing read of 2016. I know so many people are loving it, but it was just not what I wanted at all. It was not what I was expecting. I feel like it felt very tame and very safe and very reminiscent of Six of Crows. Like the best things that I liked in Crooked Kingdom, the parts that I was like laughing at or found funny, like those were just like verbatim reworkings of parts that I loved in Six of Crows. I just feel like Six of Crows should have been a standalone now that I've read Crooked Kingdom, which is really sad because I was so excited for Crooked Kingdom, but it's just, it didn't work for me at all. I felt like something was off in it, if that makes sense. Like it just didn't feel as natural or as fun to read as Six of Crows did. So for that, I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I know people are loving it, but it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. Alright, so there you have it. Those are all the books I read in September. I kind of, you know, like went up and down with how good the books I was reading were. But if you read any of these books or read any books in general for September, please feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel down below to be told to make all sorts of new videos. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!